Can even conservatives see the need for police reform? Julio Rivera drops by to talk about repeal and replacing the police. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Well, the headline over at Raw Story, an article by Brad Reed reads, "Neighbors stunned as cop takes down black Amazon driver for parking the wrong way." He parked on the wrong side of the street with his car facing the wrong direction. A neighborhood in Warren, Michigan expressed shock this week when local police took down a black Amazon driver for merely parking the wrong way on their street. Fox 2 Detroit reports that witnesses say the Amazon driver was tackled by a police officer, and they go through the whole thing. He called in help. He ended up with 3 cops sitting on him. Pretty strange stuff. What do we do? This defund the police is basically a call to do the same thing that the Republican Party has been talking about doing with Obamacare for quite some time, which is repeal and replace. Let's get to gender and racial equality in our police departments to reflect the communities. Let's have helpers for the police. There's a lot of things that cops are called on to do that really don't require cops. They require things like mental health professionals. Police can be effective can only be effective when they're considered legitimate by their communities. Therefore, frankly, I think they should live in their communities where they work, and I think that they should have malpractice insurance. On the line with us is Julio Rivera, our old buddy, the editorial director at Reactionary Times, columnist with Newsmax, American Thinker, and townhall.com. ReactionaryTimes.com is his website, and his Twitter handle is YEAH. Oh, yeah, it's Julio. Julio, welcome back. So what do you think about repeal and replace for dealing with our police problems?
Well, the last thing we need to do right now in a time of chaos and uprising across the country is to think about defunding the police. I will say this, though. There is an issue that needs to be addressed, and I think that's the police unions. The police unions are far too strong, and they're offering protection to bad police officers. The police officer in the case of George Floyd, he had 18 violations. I don't understand how you could be a police officer with 18 violations and still have your job. So I think it's the strength of the police unions. I think police, just like any other job, you should get job security and promoted and get raises and all that kind of stuff based on merit. And I think that's across the board. I think that, we can talk about and have the same conversation in regards to the teachers' unions. I think there's too many bad teachers out there, just like there's too many bad police officers. Who's educating the people in these high crime areas? We can make that argument as well, can't we, Tom?
Well, teachers aren't carrying guns to begin with, number one. And number two, the teachers' unions have been really, really effective at advocating for children. More often than not, what you find are teachers' unions are fighting for the kids in their schools as much as they are their teachers. But I'd rather not have this be a debate. You're welcome to come on and debate teachers' unions with me if you want. But right now, I think the issue we need to be talking about is the police. And I realize you don't like unions as a conservative. I do like unions as a liberal. But I actually agree with you. These police unions are running as protection rackets. In some cases, they're not even incorporated as actual unions, although in most cases, apparently they are. And, I think, frankly, they're out of control. But I think that's a small reflection of a much larger problem, which is our system of policing itself. And at the very least, what is wrong with saying that police must, 94% of the cops, if my recollection is correct, it's over 90%, whatever the number is, of the Minneapolis cops don't live in Minneapolis. What's wrong with this picture? People should go home to the neighborhoods that they police. They should know the people that they're policing. Number one. Number two, they should reflect their community in regard, with regard to race at the very least, and income broadly, to the extent that that's possible. You're probably not going to get a lot of millionaires wanting to become cops, but you get my point. And number three, what about gender equality? 51% of our population is female. It's got to be about 3% of our cops. Your thoughts, Julio?
Well, the one thing is being a cop, being a police officer is an opt-in proposition. So you can't necessarily control the demographics by race and by gender in that way.
You can do recruiting.
I totally agree with you that we should have police officers that are forced to live in the neighborhoods that they police. I think that would have a great effect on minimizing police brutality, because then they would know more or less the lay of the land. They would know a lot of the people that they may potentially be called on to have to deal with. It may, break down the walls of, I think a lot of the tension that surfaces when the police first encounter a situation, if they're familiar with the people that they're dealing with. I strongly agree with you on that one, Tom.
Yeah. Fascinating. So another one, another piece of this. I went through the list really quickly at the top of the hour. I saw a police chief on CNN, and my apologies, I don't remember his name or where he was from, but this was about 3 days ago. And the straight up interview. It wasn't some kind of a trash cops or trash Trump or whatever interview. And the interviewer asked this police chief, what's one of the biggest problems that you have as a police officer, or that your police officers have? And he said that about 80% of the calls that we get do not require the immediate use of force or the use of force. And probably at least 50% of the calls that we get probably never would require the use of force. And so for a lot of these calls that are being handed off to us by 9/11, we're doing things that other people should be doing instead of having guys with guns doing them. You've got people who are having mental health crises. You've got people who are having domestic disputes that are not, where somebody's got a gun, or not violence. You've got, dogs running amok. You've got Amazon drivers parking the wrong way on the street. I mean, God only knows what it is. Bird watchers in the park. And he was suggesting that there should be, 911 right now can only call cops and ambulances and fire trucks. They should be able to call a few other things too. And those should be integrated into the communication systems with the police and fire departments. What do you think?
I, again, fully agree. But in cases of domestic violence, we don't always get an accurate story of what's actually going on. So the police, if anything else, to act as a diffuser of tensions that may eventually become violent. I mean, how many violent women become victims of violent crime as a result of domestic abuse? So I think that the police still should, more or less, that should still fall under their jurisdiction. But you're right. I mean, people that are having drug overdoses or people who are suicidal, there should be more resources. But this blanket movement of, let's defund the police, let's remove, police forces and replace it with community-based alternatives. I mean, that sounds like a fairy tale to me, Tom. At the end of the day, these communities, especially a lot of the urban communities where drugs and gangs and violence is rampant. I mean, how are you going to remove the police and not have the inner cities where...
I don't think anybody is talking about removing them, Julio. What people are talking about is repeal and replace, basically. It's if the police force is so corrupt that you get 100 cops standing on the street giving a standing ovation to a guy who just got indicted for murder or for police violence, you've got a corrupt police department. You really need to just, start over.
There is corruption in some police departments, and I think the Department of Justice should step up.
I think it's the norm.
A full national audit of police officers.
Well, this is what Obama called for. He issued 59 proposals, and Trump set it all aside and said, we're not going to do any of that.
No, Trump, you could read about it in Reactionary Times. Trump is looking to install some major reforms right now to policing, and he's asking the help of Congress to go ahead and do so. So, no, that's not accurate, Tom.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to those. Julio Rivera, reactionarytimes.com is the website. Oh, yeah, it's Julio is the Twitter handle. Julio, it's interesting. It's nice talking with you, and we're not just screaming at each other. Thank you so much for dropping by. Although screaming at each other is entertaining, too.